One day, stop explaining. Stop replying instantly. Stop proving your loyalty. Stop announcing your plans. Stop trying to convince people that you deserve to stay in their lives. Then watch what happens. Some people will panic. Some will become angry. Some will suddenly remember your value. Not because you changed, but because your absence revealed what your presence had been hiding all along. Machiavelli understood a truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. The person who is always available is rarely respected. Power does not grow through constant visibility. Power grows through controlled absence. If people always know where to find you, if they always know what you're thinking, if they always have unlimited access to your attention, they stop appreciating you. Tonight, you are going to discover why withdrawing is not weakness. Why silence often speaks louder than confrontation. And why leaving without explanation is sometimes the strongest move a man can make. But before we begin, write this affirmation in the comments. My silence is my strength. Because today, you are not learning how to escape people. You are learning how to make your presence valuable by mastering your absence. Most men believe they earn love through constant availability. They answer every message within minutes. They accept every invitation. They explain every decision. They apologize for needing space, believing that being endlessly accessible proves loyalty and strength. But Machiavelli observed something different. Human beings quickly stop valuing what is always within reach. Familiarity creates comfort, but excessive familiarity breeds indifference. The more predictable you become, the less impact your presence has. Your attention turns into something expected instead of something earned. Think about your own life. Have you ever noticed that people suddenly become interested when you stop chasing them? Friends who ignored you begin asking where you've been. Family members who rarely called suddenly reach out. Even rivals begin wondering what you're planning. Nothing magical happened. Only one thing changed. Your absence forced people to experience life without unlimited access to you. This is why withdrawing is not about punishing others. It is about restoring perspective. People cannot appreciate what never leaves their sight. The strongest man understands that attention is a resource, not a habit. He gives it deliberately, not automatically. He is present because he chooses to be, not because he fears disappointing everyone around him. Many people stay available because they secretly fear being forgotten. They worry that if they disappear, no one will care enough to notice. Ironically, that fear traps them in a cycle of overgiving that makes them easier to overlook. The man who quietly steps back discovers something unexpected. Those who genuinely value him remain. Those who only valued his usefulness begin to disappear. In a single decision, he learns who respected him and who merely enjoyed having constant access to his energy. Withdrawal is not isolation. It is revelation. Sometimes you must become unavailable to discover who was only present because you made life convenient for them. And once you understand that difference, you stop fearing solitude. You begin recognizing it as one of the greatest teachers of power. One of the greatest mistakes a man makes is believing everyone deserves an explanation. He writes long messages. He defends his choices. He argues his reasons. He hopes that if he explains himself well enough, everyone will finally understand. Most never do. Machiavelli understood that explanations often reveal something deeper than honesty. They reveal a desire for approval. When you constantly justify your decisions, you quietly hand other people authority over your life. You imply that your choices require their permission before they become valid. Powerful men don't behave this way. They decide, then they act. Silence becomes their explanation, This doesn't mean becoming cold or cruel. It means recognizing that not every conversation deserves your energy. Many people don't ask questions because they seek understanding. They ask because they seek control. They want to negotiate your boundaries. They want to guilt you into staying. They want to make your decision feel selfish until you abandon it altogether. If you keep explaining, you stay trapped inside their frame. The moment you stop explaining, you reclaim your own. People may accuse you of changing. They may call you distant. They may even invent stories about why you left. Let them. You cannot control their imagination. Trying to manage every opinion is a prison with no exit. Your responsibility is not to control every narrative. Your responsibility is to protect your peace. Every unnecessary explanation drains emotional energy that could have been invested in your own growth. Sometimes the strongest sentence is never spoken. Sometimes the greatest argument is walking away without needing to win one. Because confidence doesn't beg to be understood. It simply moves forward. Nothing reveals character faster than your absence. As long as you remain available, people can hide behind convenience. They can claim they care while making no effort. They can enjoy your support without ever giving anything back. But remove yourself. Everything changes. Some people will immediately reach out because they genuinely value you. Others will only contact you when they need another favor. Some won't notice at all. That silence tells you everything words never could. Machiavelli believed observation is more powerful than interrogation. Instead of asking people how much they value you, create enough distance for them to answer through their actions. People reveal themselves naturally when they believe no one is watching. Withdrawal creates exactly that opportunity. Watch who respects your boundaries without complaint. Watch who becomes angry because they lost access to your attention. Watch who suddenly begins criticizing you after you stop serving their interests. None of these reactions are accidents. They expose hidden expectations that were always there. Many relationships survive only because one person keeps carrying all the emotional weight. The moment that person steps back, the relationship collapses. That collapse isn't failure, it's clarity. Better to lose an illusion than spend years protecting one. Your absence is not only a test for others, it is a test for yourself. Can you tolerate being misunderstood? Can you resist checking your phone every 5 minutes? Can you endure loneliness without immediately returning to people who never truly appreciated you? If you can, you gain something infinitely more valuable than approval. You gain freedom, because the man who no longer fears being alone can never again be controlled through the fear of losing people. That is the first step toward becoming truly powerful. One of Machiavelli's greatest observations was that predictability is the enemy of power. The moment people believe they have you figured out, they stop respecting your potential. They know exactly when you'll answer. They know you'll always forgive. They know you'll explain yourself after every disagreement. They know you'll come back, no matter how poorly you're treated. In other words, they no longer see you as a man making choices. They see you as a habit. Habits are useful, but they are never feared. This is why strategic silence unsettles people. When you stop reacting the way they expect, you force them into uncertainty. Suddenly, they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know whether you're leaving for good or simply protecting your peace. They don't know if you've moved on or if you're quietly building a better life. That uncertainty shifts the balance. People often mistake silence for passivity, but silence can be one of the strongest forms of communication. It says, I no longer need to convince you. I no longer need to defend myself. My actions will speak louder than my words. Notice how many conflicts survive only because both sides keep talking. Every message leads to another argument. Every explanation creates another misunderstanding. Every attempt to be understood invites another debate. Silence ends that cycle. It denies emotional manipulators the reaction they were hoping to provoke. It refuses to feed gossip with more words. It leaves critics arguing with an empty room while you continue moving forward. The man who masters silence cannot easily be manipulated because people cannot predict where his emotions will lead him. He becomes difficult to provoke, difficult to read, and impossible to control through guilt. His silence is not confusion. It is discipline, and discipline is far more intimidating than anger. Most people fear being alone because solitude forces them to meet themselves. Without constant conversations, endless notifications, and the noise of other people's opinions, there is nowhere left to hide. Every insecurity becomes visible. Every weakness demands attention. Every excuse loses its power. This is exactly why solitude is so valuable. Machiavelli knew that a ruler who depends on constant approval eventually becomes a servant to public opinion. The same is true for ordinary men. If your identity depends on how often people call you, praise you, or include you, then your confidence is no longer yours. It belongs to everyone else. Withdrawal changes that. When you spend time away from the crowd, your thinking becomes clearer. You begin making decisions because they align with your values instead of because they impress other people. You stop chasing applause and start chasing mastery. This transformation is uncomfortable. There will be moments when you wonder whether anyone remembers you. There will be quiet evenings when loneliness whispers that you should return to the same people who drained your energy. There will be days when reaching out seems easier than continuing your discipline. Resist that temptation. Growth rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. Every hour spent developing your mind, strengthening your body, improving your skills, or building your future is an investment that no one can take away. While others are distracted by endless conversations, you are becoming someone they will barely recognize when you return. The purpose of solitude is not to hide from life. It is to prepare for it. The strongest man does not withdraw because he hates people. He withdraws because he refuses to let constant noise shape the man he is becoming. He returns stronger, calmer, wiser, and far less dependent on anyone's approval. That is the real reward of stepping away. Leaving means very little if you come back exactly the same. Many men disappear for a few weeks only to return desperate for attention, eager to explain where they have been, and ready to slip back into the same exhausting routines. Nothing changes because they never changed. Machiavelli would call this wasted opportunity. Withdrawal is meant to create transformation, not merely distance. When you return, let your habits speak before your words do. Be slower to react, more selective with your time, more disciplined with your attention, more comfortable saying no without guilt. People will notice the difference immediately. Some will admire it. Others will resent it because they benefited from the old version of you. The version that always sacrificed his peace to keep everyone else comfortable. Do not mistake their disappointment for evidence that you're making the wrong choice. Often people resist your growth because it forces them to confront their own lack of it. You are not responsible for making everyone comfortable with your boundaries. You are responsible for honoring them. Speak less than before. Observe more than before. Promise less than before. Deliver more than before. This quiet changes create a reputation that words never could. Others begin to realize that your attention is valuable because it is no longer available to everyone. Your approval carries weight because you no longer give it freely. Your presence becomes memorable because it is intentional. That is how respect is rebuilt. Not through louder speeches, not through emotional confrontations, but through consistent actions that prove you have become a different man. people eventually stop asking why you changed. Instead, they begin wondering how you became so difficult to influence. And that question has only one answer. You learned the power of walking away before the world convinced you to stay exactly where you were. There is one ability that separates the powerful from the powerless more than intelligence, wealth, or status. It is the ability to walk away. Machiavelli understood that dependence is the invisible chain behind nearly every form of control. The moment someone believes you cannot leave, they gain leverage over you. They know you'll tolerate disrespect because you're afraid of being alone. They know you'll compromise your values because you're desperate to belong. They know you'll remain silent when you should speak because you fear losing the relationship. This is how control begins. Not with force, but with dependence. The man who has learned to withdraw has already broken that chain. He knows that peace is more valuable than constant company. He knows that dignity is worth more than temporary acceptance. He knows that being alone for a season is far better than spending years surrounded by people who slowly erode his confidence. When you become willing to leave, your decisions become fearless. You stop negotiating your principles. You stop accepting one-sided relationships. You stop begging for honesty, loyalty, or respect. You simply remove yourself. That quiet departure often says more than 1,000 arguments ever could. Many people believe strength means staying and fighting every battle. But wisdom teaches something different. Some battles cannot be won because the other person is committed to misunderstanding you. Some relationships cannot be repaired because they survive only when you sacrifice your self-respect. Some environments cannot help you grow because they reward mediocrity and punish ambition. Knowing when to leave is not surrender. It is strategy. The strongest man is not the one who can endure endless mistreatment. It is the one who recognizes when endurance has become self-destruction. Walking away is not an emotional reaction. It is a calculated decision to protect your future. And once people realize you are fully capable of leaving, something remarkable happens. Those who genuinely value you begin respecting your boundaries. Those who only valued controlling you begin exposing themselves. Either way, you win, because you are no longer trapped by the fear of losing people who were never helping you become the man you were meant to be. Freedom begins the moment you realize your greatest strength is not convincing people to stay. It is knowing that you will be completely fine if they don't. Most people spend their lives chasing acceptance. They chase invitations, approval, validation, and attention, believing that the more people they keep around them, the more successful they have become. But Machiavelli understood that numbers have never been a measure of strength. A crowd can applaud you today and abandon you tomorrow. Public opinion changes with convenience. Respect built on constant availability disappears the moment you stop serving everyone's expectations. That is why every powerful man must eventually learn the discipline of withdrawal. Not forever, not out of bitterness, but long enough to hear his own thoughts again. Long enough to remember that his value does not come from being constantly seen. Long enough to discover who he is without the noise of endless opinions. When you leave without explaining yourself, you are not asking people to understand you. You are accepting that they may never understand you. And continuing anyway, that is emotional freedom. When you stop chasing every relationship, you begin attracting healthier ones. When you stop answering every criticism, you preserve your peace. When you stop trying to convince everyone of your worth, you finally begin living as though you already know it. Your silence will confuse some people. Your absence will offend others. Your boundaries will disappoint those who benefited from having unlimited access to your time. Let them feel that. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is becoming a man whose inner peace cannot be purchased, manipulated, or stolen. Remember this: the loudest man in the room is rarely the strongest. The busiest man is rarely the most productive. The most available man is rarely the most respected. Real power belongs to the man who can disappear without fear, improve without applause, and return without needing to announce his transformation. He does not seek revenge. He does not seek validation. He does not waste his energy proving people wrong. He simply becomes so disciplined, so calm, and so self-sufficient that his life itself becomes the answer. If there is one lesson to carry with you after this video, let it be this: you do not have to explain every departure. You do not have to fight every battle. You do not have to remain where your peace is slowly dying. Sometimes the wisest move is the quietest one. Withdraw, rebuild. Return only when your presence is a choice, not a necessity. Because the man who no longer fears solitude has already won the greatest battle of all, the battle for control over himself. Before you go, remember this: every powerful transformation begins with one quiet decision that almost no one else notices. It begins the moment you stop chasing people who have already shown you where you stand. It begins the moment you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. It begins the moment you realize that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. The world will always reward people who are easy to influence, constantly available, and afraid of disappointing others. But history remembers the men who mastered themselves before trying to master anything else. The man who can sit alone without feeling empty, who can walk away without looking back, and who can remain silent without feeling the need to defend himself, possesses a kind of strength that cannot be taken from him. From this day forward, choose discipline over impulse. Choose clarity over confusion. Choose silence over unnecessary arguments. Every time you refuse to react emotionally, every time you protect your time, and every time you place your purpose above the need for approval, you become a little stronger than you were yesterday. Now I want to hear from you. Write this affirmation in the comments. I choose peace. I owe no unnecessary explanations. Let those words be more than a comment. Let them become a promise you make to yourself every single day. If this video challenged the way you think, stay with us. There are many more timeless lessons inspired by Machiavelli waiting to sharpen your mind, strengthen your discipline, and help you become the kind of man who cannot be manipulated by praise, controlled by fear, or distracted by the opinions of others. Until our next lesson, remember this: the strongest man is not the one who speaks the loudest, fights the hardest, or demands the most attention. The strongest man is the one who knows exactly when to leave, when to remain silent, and when to let his actions speak in place of his words. Walk away when your peace is threatened. Withdraw when your mind needs clarity. Return only when you have become stronger.